Welcome to the presentation of a lecture from Gnostic Radio, a free public service from the Gnostic tradition of Samael Aun Weor. Gnosis is the root wisdom of all the world's great religions. Gnosis is a universal teaching of practical science, whose goal is absolute liberation from suffering and the complete development of the human being. This lecture is one of hundreds available as free downloads, podcasts, or transcriptions. Our lectures range in topic and complexity in order to address the many needs of humanity. We invite you to browse our library of lectures to find teachings that suit you. Each Saturday, Gnostic Radio broadcasts live and includes a free online classroom allowing listeners to see images, read related scriptures, and ask questions of the speaker. To learn how to participate, visit gnosticradio.org. Gnostic Radio is a service of Glorian Publishing, a non-profit organization. The lectures and radio broadcast have been made possible by the financial support of listeners like you. Most spiritual schools recommend a donation of $10 to $20 per lecture. To make a donation, visit gnosticradio.org. Now, with heartfelt wishes for the end of suffering for all creatures, we begin the lecture. May all beings be happy.
Alchemical Kabbalistic Christ. Following the sequence of the lectures that we gave related with Christ, today we are going to emphasize in our physiology, our physicality, related with the Lord Christ, knowing that the Lord is not a person, but an energy, a force, like the electricity. The Lord indeed is the light that is filling the endless space within which we find also that substance that is called the mother, that Gurdjieff in his books named Eternokrilno, in which in the Hinduism is named the Akasha, the substance that contains the light, or that is fecundated by the light. So, our physical body is indeed as well more than 70% water, fluid. If you cut your flesh, the first thing that comes is fluid. So think about that indeed in our body, even though it looks solid, but we have many fluids inside. In the same way as the earth, when we look at any planet from the space, especially our planet Earth, we think at something solid, but indeed, all the planets have water. The Earth has water above and water below. The water above, of course, is in the atmosphere. When you hear the thunders before any rain, you know that the water will fall from the sky. And it is because the water exists in different levels. The liquid, which is in the seas, oceans, rivers, the gaseous, which is the clouds, and the solid, which usually is found in the poles as the ice. So the water indeed is the main element that serves as a channel for the law of 7 and the law of 3 that we mentioned in previous lectures, related with cosmic common, trogo-auto-egocratic law, which governs the universe. This law relates with the law of 3 and the law of 7. The law of 3, which is the Triamatzikamno, and the law of 7, which is the Epta Paraparshinok. When we talk about the cosmic common trogo-auto-egocrat, to swallow and to be swallowed, we have to face ourselves, not only physically, but psychologically, even spiritually. We give and we take. But since we are in this physical world, we have to start studying the physical body, hyle, as they call it in Greek, the material aspect of us. And we explained in previous lectures how we eat through 3 ways: through the mouth, through the nose, and through the impression that we receive through the senses. And also, we talk about the law of 3 and the law of 7 in the macrocosmic aspect and also in the microcosmic. The law of the Lord, which is the first law, that says, I am the light, I am the life, I am the path, relates to it. That's why we quoted 2 paragraphs of the Gospels. The first one that we read is, and he said to them all. We had to understand that when we address he, or when the Gospels are talking about Jesus Christ, let us bear in mind that we are not talking about Jesus Christ or 2,000 years ago, but the Lord, the light that was incarnated in him, because that is the magic, we will say, of it. When we talk about the Lord, the Christ, we see him as without form, diluted in the space, as energy that could become light that we can see and light that we cannot see. So the Lord is divided in many parts. But when we perform the work that we have to perform in us, as we explain in other lectures, that we as individuals have 3 brains. We are the only creatures on this planet that have the capability of becoming vehicles of the light. Christified, in other words, as Jesus of Nazareth demonstrated 2011 years ago. When he was talking was the Lord talking through him, because he was a vessel of that light that the Bible calls the Son of God. She's the light. Knowing that God is not also a person, but a force, an energy, which is the abstract absolute space. And the first emanation of that abstract absolute space is the light, which we call the sun. But it's also the Word. Remember that it's also written, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the Word, the light, the sound is life that enters into our organism. And those individuals, tetartocosmoses, or fourth type of cosmoses, which are physically we, as, if we do the work that we have to do, then we become Christified, like Jesus, like Muhammad, like Krishna, like Quetzalcoatl, like Kuan Yin. And if you inquire in many religions, you will find this type of individuals that perform the work in themselves and therefore became vessels of that light. Now, the Master Jesus of Nazareth came in order to show with his own life what to do in order for us to become like him or like any other Christified adept. And this is precisely the main point here, in order for us not to fall into confusion. Because what the Lord said through the lips of Master Jesus is related with this alchemical Kabbalistic Christ, the way in which we manage the forces in our organism. That's why when it says, and he said to them all, just picture that to comprehend that is not the personality of the Master Jesus of Nazareth that we are talking about, but he, the light, he, the life, he, the path that is there becoming human. There is something here that will help us to understand this. The Son of God is Christ. But when somebody realizes him within, he becomes the Son of Man. So behold that. The Son of Man is that man, manas, that human being that crystallizes him. So being he universal, cosmic, becomes human, and that is the Son of Man. But the Son of Man is Krishna, the Son of Man is Buddha, the Son of Man is Samael on Veor, the Son of Man is Quetzalcoatl, Kuan Yin, and many other great masters that with his life gave that light to humanity. So he said, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. You see, we are going to explain about this taking of the cross daily. Not every week, but daily. And if we take this statement Kabbalistically, we have to address the 7 days of Genesis. Daily means the 7 days of Genesis. Remember that when we celebrate the Passion of the Lord every year, sometimes in March, sometimes in April, usually in the Catholic countries, they celebrate the Holy Week. Here in the United States, we celebrate only Holy Friday, or sometimes Holy Thursday. But in the South, it says the Holy Week. All the 7 days are holy. because those 7 days symbolize the 7 days of Genesis, or the 7 steps, which are related with the law of the Epta, Para, Parshinak, which are very well addressed in the book of Revelation, as we explained in the previous lecture. So that is to take up the cross daily. You see, we have to emphasize here the word up, not down, up. The cross, the stauros in Greek, is symbolized by a pole. But the stauros, in order to be vertical, has to be inserted in the ectes. The ectes was like a pedestal on which the stauros was inserted in order to hold it. So that pedestal, or ectes, in this case, symbolizes the earth. The earth itself, as we explain, is Malkut, the kingdom in Kabbalah, which is feminine. When we inserted the stauros in the earth, we are crossing the stauros in the earth. We are making the cross. In this case, if you visualize the horizontal line, is the earth, which will make the cross of Peter, the apostle, which was inverted. It is because the stauros represents the phallus, and the earth represents the vagina. It's a phallic symbol. People are scandalized when they discover that the cross is a phallic symbol. So therefore, some of these sects of this day and age, they pray or they preach that the Lord was not crucified on a cross because it's a symbol of the phallus and the vagina, but in the stauros, they said, which is a vertical pole, without realizing that the stauros, in order to be vertical, has to be inserted in the earth. And that is a crossing, it's a cross. So no matter what they want to do, in order to avoid the cross is always present there. Because the Lord is activated through the cross. In other words, through the masculine and feminine forces, positive and negative forces, in order for the third to emerge from the union of the two. That's why you find that in the cross, which is the ectes and the stauros, is the human being crucified, because that is the outcome of the cross in the higher aspect. Without going so deep into details, let us understand that we, physically speaking, we are the outcome of the cross. Our father crossed sexually with our mother, and here we are. The phallus, the stauros of our father, penetrated the earth, our mother, the nice sphere. You see, in many lectures we say that the physical body represents Malkut, the kingdom, the earth, and is feminine. And it's true. But if we want to visualize the earth humanly represented, then we find the woman. It has more of the earth than the male. Because within her womb, which is inside her body, is where the life is built. In the same way, when the solar light penetrates the earth, enters into the center, and from it emerges with life which ripens the fruits of the earth with life to all the seeds. This is called the resurrection of the Lord, according to the drama. So that's why it is stated that if we want to enter into the kingdom of heaven, we have to go into the ninth sphere. That ninth sphere is the ectase, where the Lord penetrates in order to give life to the planet. So when the man penetrates the woman, he is entering into her particular individual ninth sphere inside. That is to enter into the ninth sphere. Or as others say, to go into hell in order to steal the fire from the devil. There are many symbols related with this cross. Talking about the water, you know that is the crossing of 3 atoms. 2 of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. 2 is always feminine, 1 is always masculine. When they penetrate the wet joint, then when they cross, they make the water. So we can see the cross in symbol in many ways. So that's why it is stated that we have to take up our cross daily. Meaning that this crossing of forces, because the Lord emerges from the cross. That's why he's hung on the cross. But nailed. This is the symbol that we had to understand. And as we explained in previous lectures, that he is between 2 thieves. That's why he says, and he that taketh not his cross and followeth me, or after me, is not worthy of me. That cross is working with the 2 polarities, as we see in the graphic. The crossing of what we call in Hinduism, Ida and Pingala. The left and the right in our physicality or physiology. Because from the combination of the 2 forces, the light emerges. When you unite 1 negative wire with 1 positive, you have light. The Lord is the light. But the light has different levels. Voltages, we will say. And this is precisely what we have to understand when we enter in relation with the cross. In the next graphic, we find the quotation of John chapter 3, 19-21 verses that says, and this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world. This world is our physicality, microcosmic physicality. And men love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. When we arrive to this point, we wonder, what is darkness? You know that after the sunset, darkness appeared. And there are many people that celebrate this darkness. Is that darkness we are talking about? Because there are many types of darknesses. But the darkness that we are talking about here is related with the cross. And it is because the Lord is crucified between the good thief in the right and the bad thief in the left. That we explained in the previous lecture. The right is Pingala, and the left is Ida. And we have that in our physicality. Pingala is related with the head, with the brain, with Adam. But Ida relates to the woman, Eve, the sexual organ. Because remember that Eve is called the mother of the living. Without Eve, without a sexual organ, we cannot procreate or multiply. So the thief in the left is related to Eve, and the one in the right to Pingala. But both of them work with the two polarities because they are on the cross, in the Stauros. And in the middle is the Lord. The light. Like saying, to my right, there are people that work with the light, and to the left is people that work with the darkness. Now the point is the earth. Remember that the Stauros is inserted in Malkut, in the earth. And what is inside the earth, psychologically speaking? The infradimensions, called Klipoth. That's why, if you look at the graphic number 7, you find exactly Malkut in the coccyx. And beneath it is Klipoth, the infernal worlds. And above it is the tree of life, the spinal column. The energy of the Lord that descends from above, from the Ein Sof Or, which is the solar absolute, through the ray of creation, goes down into Klipoth, thanks to Ida, which is governed by the moon. Because Klipoth is governed by the moon. It is written that after the fall of Adam into Klipoth, he had two wives, Lilith and Nahema. Lilith is called night, that's the darkness that this verse is talking about. People love more darkness than light because when the individual fornicates, when the individual ejaculates their semen, or they reach the orgasm, then the fire that descends from above through Ida goes down to Klipoth, to darkness. The light of the Lord is off, but instead of that light enters an infrared type of light, which is darkness, related with the moons, with Nahema or Nahemod, which means pleasure. If you look for that, the meaning of that word in Hebrew, Nahemod, means pleasure. Pleasure of what? Pleasure of the sexual act, of course, like animal. Then descends and forms the tail that comes from Malkut down, Klipoth. That is darkness. So that's why it is written, the light came into the world. But men love more darkness than light, because that happens daily. You see, daily, what we eat, we breathe in our brain, the impressions, that is transformed into what we call sperm and ovum. The seed in our human seed is where the Lord, as light, as life, is in our organism. And in the moment of the sexual act, if we spill, eject that seed within which the Lord is waiting in order to awake like light, obviously we lose the light and we enter into darkness, which is ignorance. Master Samael on Veor, in his book, The Revolution of Beelzebub, he wrote, the cerebrospinal fluid and the semen are the two poles of the sexual energy. By the way, this is the slide number 8 that we are reading here. It's a quotation of the Master Samael on Veor. So we have two fluids in our physical organism. The cerebrospinal fluid relates, of course, with what we call Pingala. But the semen, which is another fluid in our organism, is related with Ida. Adam and Eve in our organism. The angel has the two poles upwards towards his head. Common in ordinary human beings and demons have one pole upward and the other downward. Means Pingala is up and Ida is down. They form the brain with one pole and they fornicate with the other pole. So you realize that? When we perform fornication, the type of intellectual or reasoning that we develop is subjective. Why is it subjective? Because the type of reasoning that we develop relates with the infra dimensions, which are sub. They are not up. It's klipoth, in other words. All the vibrations, all which concerns to darkness, to Lilith and Nahemad, goes up into the brain and develop the subjective reasoning related with the five senses. And this is precisely the type of intellect or reasoning that this humanity have in this day and age. The more they fornicate, the more they develop the subjective reasoning. The Kundalini of the angel goes upwards, yet the demon's Kundalini goes downwards. And this is related with the law of Epta Paraparshinok, the law of 7. Because remember that in the spinal column we have the 7 churches, the 7 chakras. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. That we talked extensively in the previous lecture related with the Harnel, Miasnel, in which the two polarities, Ida and Pingala, cross in our body with the exercises, with practices that we know of Tantra, and are awakening the 7 churches in the 7 levels. And those are related with the tree of life. As we see in the graphic number 7. 7 up, 7 down. With the 7 that we mentioned here relate to the 7 lower sephiroth of the tree of life and the 3 primary forces in the brain. When the angel, or in other words, when that human being transmutes the sexual energy, when it extracts alchemically the light which is in the sperm and in the ovum, then the light emerges in the Shushumna, which is the spinal medulla. You see, Pingala is the father, Ida is the mother, and Shushumna is the son. The fire of Shushumna is the one that awakens the 7 churches, the 7 chakras. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. That is the Harnel, Miasnel acting in us. But When the individual, instead of transmuting, fornicates, practices the animal sex, like everybody knows, then that light goes down and activates the 7 lower chakras of the lower abdomen, which Muhammad talks about. It says there are the 7 doors of hell. We will say are the 7 magnetic forces related with the hard nail, mias nail, going down in the tail. 7 lower chakras. There are many individuals that know how to activate those chakras and become, as they say between quotations, psychic, with the ego very fat inside. That's easy to develop that type of psychic powers that relates only to klipot. The chakras rotating backwards, counterclockwise. That is the hard nail, mias nail, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, down, going down to klipot. That's why certain individuals develop the intellect, but when they discover esotericism, they start practicing black tantra, which is practices of sexual magic with ejaculation, with orgasm, without renouncing the animal, because they love more darkness than light. So therefore, they become thieves of the left. Individuals that know about Tantra, that know about the cross, the mystery of the 2 polarities in the physical body, but they awake in the negative aspect, to klipot. And that's why it is very clear there in the second graphic that the Lord says, and men loved darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. Their sexual deeds were related with klipot. It is easier to awake in that way than in the positive way. For everyone that does evil, fornicates, hates the light, neither comes to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. Because when you work in this path of the cross, in order to awake the Kundalini, the Sushumna, the Son of God within you, then of course you have to fight. Because the first command of the Lord that says, whosoever wants to come after me, deny himself. To deny oneself is to deny our own animality. That's not easy. It's easier to love darkness than to the light. But when you do that, when you start performing what it has to do with the cross, and then you understand that your previous deeds were evil. That's why after that he says, but he that does truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are worked in God. When we love the truth and we want to become vehicles of the Lord, obviously our deeds of the past are shown when we start working with the light. And the light sees that we were fornicators, adulterers, and with all the defects and vices within. So our deeds, our evil deeds, are shown clearly. That's why when we enter into this path, we are not presuming of saints, that we are holy and that you are evil because we are doing this. No. Because we are awakening the light of the Lord in the positive manner, we are aware of our evil, of our ego that we have within. And that presently we are always in front of the lights, and the light sees that. And that's why we had to deny ourselves through the techniques that we know, meditation, in order to walk ahead. But those that are loving the darkness, that they don't want to, their deeds, and that these are evil, and they don't want to show or their deeds to be reproved by the light. Those are those people that, knowing this path, they think that they will enter into heaven while fornicating. Just because they believe in what is written in the Gospels, they will go into the rapture with the subjective reasoning that they fortify with their fornication. They believe, as Pharisees, that we'll enter into heaven. And that's precisely the point, because they don't want to go into the light, into the right path. And they think. And that's why the thief in the left says, if you are really the Son of God, descend from the cross. What is that statement? If you are really the Son of God, do not practice that. You are all powerful. You are almighty, the Son of the highest. Why are you practicing that? Descend from the cross and save me too. Because he's a filthy fornicator, like any animal. And then the thief in the right says, aren't you afraid of what you're suffering here? We are receiving the punishment that we deserve. But this one, which is in the middle, which is the light, he did not anything bad. We utilize him, we use him in our own way. And then he says, Lord, well, I am also a thief, but you know, I am meditating, annihilating my ego, and I am with you, waking in a positive way. Remember me when you come into thy kingdom. Thy kingdom, your kingdom, which is Malkut. And he says, I tell you that today, not tomorrow, not yesterday. Today you will be in paradise, which is the fourth dimension, which is the superior aspect of Malkut, the kingdom. So that's the good thief. And between the good thief and the bad thief is a battle here on the earth. The bad thief is always accusing the good thief. He's a stealer, a plagiarist. He did that, etc., etc., etc. And of course, the good thief is always teaching how to go on the right path. But followers of the bad thief are many, millions. There's an eternal battle between the two of them. And in the middle is the Lord. Because the bad thief, in order to be a bad thief, he has to steal the energy of the Lord in order to fornicate. Because the energy enters into the physical body every day. Of what we eat, while we breathe, while we think. It's always there. All depends on us. We are bad thieves, for sure. Nobody here will say, oh, I am a good thief. Maybe you're starting to be a good. But in order to be really a good thief, the bad thief has to be annihilated completely. And that's a good, it's a long work. You're not going to annihilate the bad thief, which is your lust, in one day, 1 week, or 1 month, or 1 year. It takes a process of comprehension, because that bad thief is called lust in us. That has many psychological aggregates. This is what we have to realize. Whether we are in the left path of a fornicator, the good thief is always inside, but doing nothing. But if we take the right path of the good thief, which is the path of the cross of transmuting the sexual energy, then we had to fight against the bad thief because he's inside of us. And those people that fortify the bad thief, well, will mock us, will ridicule us in different ways. And we have to walk ahead. So that is precisely the point of the cross. And the graphic number 3, we wrote the first chapter of the book of Genesis, Bereshith. Bereshith bara Elohim at ha-shamim ve'at haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is how it is written in the English translation. And of course, this is Kabbalah, or the letters related with Kabbalah. In these words, we always point that hide all the alchemical work that we had to perform, the work with the Lord. You find, for instance, the first word, Bereshit, that if you inquire, the first letter, Bet, and the last, which is Tav, make the word daughter. Bet and Tav, Bat. Bat, we will say, means daughter. This daughter is the one that generates. Remember that the woman is the daughter. Who is that daughter? Eterno Krilno. The Akashic waters in the space, which fill the endless space. That's the bat of the abstract space. And within it, or in the middle of the bet and the tav, you find the word Rashi. Of course, within it is hidden Ish, Yod, Shin, and Ra. Israel. But one letter is missing, which is Lamed, that we are going to talk about, what is hidden, why is missing. It is missing because it is not an activity. In order for the fires or the archetypes related with all the parts of God within, with our own monad, to be active, they need the letter L. Lamed. They need to learn how to teach, how to develop their comprehension and understanding. To teach. You see, I'm teaching here because I understand at a certain level. That is called in Hebrew, lamad. Lamed, to teach. And that's the L. That's the letter that touches heaven and touches earth. That's how you make Lamed, like this. Uniting heaven and earth. Lamed. When that letter enters into activity, then we find that the daughter, Bat, delivers Israel into the universe in order to be developed. That's why it is written that Christ is the King of Israel. the activity of the Lord, the light, is king of Israel. But this Israel is a word, a mysterious word, Kabbalistic word that encloses all the archetypes, all the parts of our own monad that we have and that everybody has within, Kabbalistically speaking. Doesn't relate to a specific race, even though we know that in the Middle East exists Israel. That is precisely the race that received this knowledge in the past. But as in many other religions, when we talk about the real Brahmans, for instance, relate to that part of ourselves related with Brahma, the monad inside of us. Not only to the Hindus, as many people think. We have to know how to read with the eyes of the Spirit in order to understand what is written. When you developed your parts of Israel within you, then you become a king of Israel. Your own melech of your own forces inside. And that's precisely what the Zohar talks about, because Zohar always emphasizes about Israel, Israel. But we have to understand that it is part of our own spiritual parts. Master Samael on Veor states that Is reminds us of Isis, Ra reminds us of the solar force, and El is God. So the letter L at the end of El, God, Aleph, and Lamed form the word God, El. So that is precisely what appears here in the word Elohim. Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning was created Elohim. You realize that? In the beginning was created Elohim. Means that the first thing that is created in the beginning is God. And thus, parts of God, what we call here Elohim, is written of the mystery of Israel, all the part of Israel. Now, when you divide the word Elohim, as you write there, you take the letter Mem and the letter Yod out of it, you only remain with Aleph, Lamed, Hey, 3 letters. That we can be read Elah or Ele. Ele means these in Hebrew. In the 5th chapter of the book of Genesis, I believe, or in the 2nd, I don't remember, but it's written this: these are the generations of the heavens and the earth. I guess it's the 2nd chapter. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth. When people read that, they don't realize that these, the word Aleph, Lamed, Hey, these, is precisely the generations of the heaven and the earth. And that's precisely what you understand when you read with the eyes of the Spirit, that these are Aleph, Lamed, Hey, which the Zohar says, these is Israel. And they say, what do you mean these is Israel? Because these is plural, means many parts of what we find here, Rashi, between the Bet, the Bat, which is also the house, in the beginning. And when they appear, they are Israel, which are these. In other words, the parts of God, which we call Elohim. That's why the end of Ele-E-M or Yod Mem, means plural. This plural, Eleim or Elohim, the plurality of that which is Israel within each one of us. So in the beginning, Elohim is the first thing that is created in this point of view. That Elohim is our own particular monad. That particular monad enters into activity in heaven and in earth. And this is precisely what we have to comprehend and understand, because when you read with the Hebrew letters, then you discover what you have to do, which is precisely the activity of the cross that we are talking about. Because the book of Genesis teaches what to do. And that's why it's written for Kabbalists, for initiates. But now we are teaching this publicly because we are in the times of the end and humanity needs it. To have the opportunity to do the work or not to do it. It's up to us. To be a good thief or a bad thief. But before the great catastrophe, you had to receive the doctrine in order to do whatever you want to do it with it. And that's why you find here that Elohim, which means these parts of Israel, in plural, are within At. At means you, feminine. Ha-Shamim, the heavens. Or it means that all the archetypes that we are talking about are symbolized in the alphabet. The first letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Aleph, and the last is Tav. So all the letters symbolize the word of God. All the parts of our own particular Elohim which we have within, that is At. That's why it's feminine. Because we have to put them in activity or to develop them. And these archetypes symbolized by the letters in Kabbalah, from Aleph to Tav, are in heaven. Hashamim, and also in the earth, which are our physicality. Means that our heaven, which is our own particular God, and we, which are the earth, physically speaking. So between heaven and earth, those generations, those letters, those parts of God, which is Israel, those parts of Elohim, should develop between heaven and earth. Because remember that it's written, these are the generations of the heaven and the earth. In the day when Jehovah Elohim created them. And that's precisely related with us. You have to visualize that in order to comprehend that we have to put in activity that. And that's the good thief. That through the light, we'll put in activity those archetypes. In order to develop objective reasoning, superior reasoning, superior intellect. There is a word, for instance, or a letter that is very interesting when we talk about. And it's the letter Aleph, the first letter. You see, we explained that the letter Aleph means, it's a symbol of air, symbol of the spirit, symbol of the wind, because Shin is fire, and Mem is water. But observe here, for instance, the word Bereshit, Bera Elohim. Again, if you take the letter Aleph, which symbolizes air, you can take it and put it in the middle. You might say, well, why we're moving Aleph? Because Aleph is moved everywhere. It's the air. That's why you find the breath of the Absolute, Ein, the breath of the Divine Mother, Ein Sof, Ein Sof, and the third aspect of the Absolute, Ein Sof Or. You find two A's there. Even in the word light, Or, you find the A. So, creation has the word A at the end. Bera, to create. But if you put it in the middle, and then you read Be'er, or Be'er, which means well. So that's why this mysterious word Bera means the forces from the well of the universe in activity. But when he's not in activity, when the Aleph is in the middle, and then you find Be'er, a well. That well, physically speaking, is in our sexual organs, from where we can take the water. Comes into my mind now the Lord, Christ, talking with the Samaritan when he was seated at the well because he's thirsty. Give me to drink, says to the Samaritan. He says, how you, being a Jew, ask me to drink, I that am a Samaritan? Because Jews and Samaritans don't get together. If you knew who is the one that is asking you, give me to drink, says, which is something inside, I will give you another water that will jump on you as eternal life. The point here is that the Samaritan and Jesus, in that conversation, you find the well in the middle. And that well is written with the Aleph in the middle of Besh, or the Bet in the Resh, Be'er. So Jesus is saying, give me to drink from your well, so that Aleph will be at the end, and you will create for you life, eternal life. You see how everything is hidden within the Kabbalistic words or Kabbalistic letters. So that's why Aleph is always there. And the letter Shin, which is fire, and the letter Mem, which is water. So when you want to take the water out of your well, you do it in the right way as a good thief. Now let us read what the book of Zohar states, related with what we are teaching here, with what we are talking about, our physicality and our own physiology as well. It says, me, the extremity of heaven above, ma, the extremity of heaven below. And this is what Jacob inherited, as he was the bolt that passes from extremity to extremity. From the extremity above, which is me, down to the extremity below, which is ma, because he stands in the middle. And because of this, me created these. Please read that carefully, because it's written in Hebrew and translated into English. But we have to understand what it's all about. Beneath it, we find Lebeb Mebin Da'at, or Lev Melvin Da'at, Mevin, Lev Mebin Da'at, which means the heart that understands knowledge. That is the phrase that you form when you write the letter Lamed. Lamed is written with Lamed, Mem, Dalet. Lamed, which means to teach. But when you take every letter in separate, you form the heart that understands knowledge. Lev, Mevin, Da'at. And that's the El that we are talking about here. The heart is Tifereth. It's in the middle of the tree of life. And that is in your throat. According to the tree of life. Visualize the tree of life. That is here. And you go up to Binah, which is understanding. That's the letter Lamed. A heart that understands knowledge. Knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Remember that the tree of knowledge of good and evil are related with Ida Pingala, the two forces. When you know how to transmute your sexual force, when you work with your alchemical Kabbalistic Christ. So, what is me? Me in Hebrew is who, which is the opposite of Yam, which means ocean, which is the same letters but backwards, which are at the very end. For instance, you heard Shamayim, or the heavens. But when you write heavens, it's Shamayim. So me, the extremity of heaven above. Look the word, Shamayim. That is precisely at the very end, the stream of the heaven, the word heaven, is Im. But backwards is me. So that two letters are at the very extreme of the word heaven. And this is precisely what you have to visualize. You see? Here is the word here somehow became backwards. Okay, there's the word. You see? Shamim, heaven. And in the image of number 3, you find the heavens. Just the letter Hey by itself means there. So take that out and just you find Shamim, which means heavens. So at the end of that word is I am, which is written backwards, means who. Who. So at the end. And at the other end of the word is the word Ma. Ma, which means what? Which is the other Mem with the letter Hey. But in the middle of that word with Ma is the letter Shin, which is fire. So the letter Shin is hidden there. The Zohar says the end or the extreme of heaven. Let us go again into the number 6. Me, the extremity of heaven above. Man, the extremity of heaven below. If you write, of course, the word Hashamim, the heavens, in that way. So Mim is above, or Me is above, and Ma is below. And this is what Jacob inherited as he was the ball that passes from extremity to extremity. Jacob. Remember that the well that we are talking about when Jesus is talking to the Samaritan is the well of Jacob. That well is Be'er in Hebrew, which will become Bera, creation. He will put in activity those forces in us. But Jacob, as you see in your graphic number 7 is the heart, is Tifereth. Because the letter Shin symbolizes Chesed, Geburah, and Tifereth. But is represented by Tifereth. That's the fire, where all the parts of God are within us. Shin. This is the Shin of Shamayim, or Hashamim, the heavens, in us. So in the middle is the heart. And the heart is related with the letter Lamed, a heart that knows or that understands knowledge. So when you developed your own particular Jacob within you, and then you unite heaven and earth inside of you. Let us explain that physically. Me is the cerebrospinal fluid where your brain and your spinal medulla floats. That's Yam, the ocean above. And Ma, which is over the letter Mem there, you see, which means water, is below, your semen. So Ma is below and Me is above. But backwards. Me is who? And Ma is what? These are two interrogative words. Who? What? But in the middle of them is the letter Shin, which means Jacob, your human soul. That archetype that unites Abraham and Isaac, your own monad, because Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob form the Trimurti in Kabbalah, which is the monad that you have within. Because within them is Israel. Isn't it? And Jacob is Israel. Jacob is the one that had the 12 tribes of Israel that went into Malkut, into Egypt, in order to be developed. So between me and Ma, heaven and earth, is Shin, which is Jacob. And this is how the Zohar explains that. But if you don't know Kabbalah, you don't know what you're reading. This is number 6. Me, the extremity of heaven above, the head. Ma, the extremity of heaven below, your sex. And this is what Jacob inherited as he was the bolt that passes from extremity to extremity. Jacob is the heart. It's in the middle, the bolt that unites the two forces. In your body. From the extremity above, which is me, down to the extremity below, which is Ma, because he stands in the middle. And because of this, me created this. Means the forces of the Father above, the Holy Spirit, created this Shin, Mem, in us. And that is what creates the word, as you can see in the graphic number 3, Hashamim, the heavens. This is something that we had to develop. The heavens inside of us with the work of the earth. See the words, Hashamim. Hey, Shin, Mem, Yod, Mem. The 4 words reading backwards is me, Mem, Yod, me. And the other 3 words, Mem, Shin, Hey, Moshe. Me, Moshe. Who? Moses? Yeah, of course. We're talking about Moses here. Willpower. You see? Moses is the only one that reaches heaven and talks with God face to face. Because Moses is our own particular heaven that we have to develop. It's not that it's just there. It's undeveloped. It's in potentiality. So who created this? Who? Moses? Yeah. Willpower created what we are talking about here. Moses is a good thief. Jesus too. All the great avatars were good thieves. But whether we're accusing of thievery. It's nothing new. All the great initiates are accused of thievery, robbery, plagiarism, because they steal the fire from the earth in order to develop their own particular Moses Sabaoth, the army of all the parts. Because who is the one that takes all Israel from slavery into the promised land? Who is the one that takes it? Who? Moshe? Yeah. Moses. You see the word there? It's very hidden. When you read it backwards, then you understand, oh, the heavens is who? Moses, backwards. Because me is the force of Binah, the Holy Spirit, in the cerebrum spinal fluid. Remember that Moshe is the one that is born from the waters. But he comes and is born in the earth. Because he was in Mizraim, Egypt, Malkut. From there he's born. Because if we want to develop Moshe in us, we have to work in ourselves. Because Moshe is the word. Hashem. If you take the Yod and Mem out of that, you read Hashem. What is Hashem? The name. The word. So, when you develop the astral body, the mental body, the causal body, with the work that we had to do, finally, when you build the causal body, then you have your Moshe within you. And with that body, you present yourself before your own particular Elohim, your monad. And your particular Elohim says, go down to Egypt. Because all the parts of Israel are slave there in Malkut, in the wheel of Zamzara. Take them up to me, because I want to be self-realized, and you are my willpower. You are the only one that can take those, because you prove it. Since you are now here with me face to face, it is because you already created the astral body, the mental body, the causal body. You are a good thief. Egypt maybe accuse you of bad things, but everybody that reaches me is accused there in Malkut, in Mizraim, of being a thief, of being a bad thing. But doesn't matter. You go back there, abandon Nirvana, and take all my people, Israel, up to me. And this is what we had to do. This is a work with the cross. Then we go down, and we show the power of the cross. The Stauros, as you see, when Moses showed to the people the serpent in the Stauros, in the wilderness. And they were healing the Israelites in the wilderness. But also Moses, with the power of his will, shows the power of the Kundalini to all those black magicians, bad thieves of Egypt. They are abandoned because they have the power, as in this day and age. If you inquire, who is the king of this Egypt, Mizraim, this Malkut? Well, the intellectuals. Those that fornicate a lot and that develop subjective reasoning. The great intellectuals of the world that deny their own self. In other words, they are atheists. Because when we find somebody that says an atheist, we don't say that he is denying God somewhere in the space. No. He's denying himself. Because God is within, he's not outside. Somebody that says, I am an atheist, or you are denying yourself, the superior part of yourself, and you are affirming the inferior part, which is you. So good luck. Yeah. And that's the point. But we want to be in heavens, right? Remember what Jesus says. We find that in the number 9, to point the ninth sphere. Jesus says, Verily, verily, I said unto you, unless one is born of water and of the Spirit, one cannot enter into the kingdom of God, which is heaven. And of course, who is this Spirit? In Latin, spirare means to breathe. That's why I said, when somebody said that he's an atheist, he said, stop. You want to be 100% atheist? Don't breathe. Don't take that aleph, which is the aleph of El, of God. Be completely an atheist. Stop breathing. He will die, of course, because without God he cannot be alive. Without the breath, without the Spirit. All of us. But we have to know how to manage the breathing, the breath, in order to enter into the kingdom of God. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is a spirit. Now in Greek, because we are reading the Gospels, it's written in Greek. It's called pneuma. Marvel not that I said unto you, you must be born again. The wind, also pneuma in Greek, blows where it wants, and you hear the sound thereof, but cannot tell from where it comes and where it goes. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit. Now we wrote there, Ruach is the Spirit in Hebrew. And where do we find that? In Genesis 1:2. And the Spirit, Ruach, or the Pneuma, or the Elohim, move upon the face of the waters. When we talk about the waters, the fluids, we have two. Pingala and Ida. The cerebral and spinal fluid, and the semen, and the sexual organs. They are the two fluids where Aleph floats, the Spirit. So therefore, there you have it. You have to put in activity your own Moshe, your own Moses. Put in activity your own Moses. Who? Moses? Me, Moshe, Ha-Shamim. Backwards, your heaven. And that starts by controlling desire. Because if you want to develop willpower, which is the symbol of Moses, you have to you have to control desire, sexual desire. When you transmute your sexual desire into willpower, there is the beginning of the building of Moses. Because Moses, willpower, has to develop in the physical body, in the vital body, in the astral body, in the mental body, and finally in the causal body as an adult. And he is willing to go to the top of the mountain of God and see God. Who is this? Who? Moses in heaven? Who? Moses in heaven? Ha-Shamim. And then he says, yeah, what do you know? Well, what is the earth? From the very bottom of the air I come, which is Ma, the Mother Earth. And this is how we go. And that's why you find what Gurdjieff wrote. A new arising from a previous arising through the heart nail means nail, the process of which is actualized. Thus, the higher blends with the lower in order together to actualize the middle, and thus to become either higher for the preceding lower or lower for the succeeding higher. And you find there again the symbol of the heart nail means nail, the spinal column, and the two forces, the three primary forces. The 7 notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, that we have to give every time. And this is precisely what we have to understand, to comprehend the path. Because this actualizing of the middle means the fire of Shushumna, right? Because me is the higher that blends with the lower, which is Ma. By uniting the brain and the sex, or the battle between sex and brain and sex, you actualize the heart, which is precisely the process of the heart nail mias nail, which begins here in the bottom. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. The 7 notes in your physical body. Let us start with the single person that is not married, whether a bachelor or bachelorette, has to follow abstention, celibacy, but to put in activity heaven and earth. Because there are many monks and nuns in different religions that they just abstain of sex before marriage, but they don't put in activity their heaven and earth. And remember that these are the generations of the heaven and the earth. So your heaven is your brain, and the earth is your sexual organ. And your heaven is in the middle. And that brings me the second day of Genesis that says, let us make a firmament, you see, in the medulla, in the midst of the waters. And let the superior water with the inferior water be separated by this firmament in the middle, which is made by the fire. This firmament is heaven within you by putting into activity your archetypes. The superior agrees with the inferior, and the inferior with the superior, to make the miracle of one thing, heaven, in us, Moshe. So, the single had to practice the pranayama to put in activity the two polarities. It comes into my mind the Egyptian pranayama. Why Egyptian? Egypt, Masrahim, because relate to the polarities in the physical body. Pingala and Ida. Master teaches that in the yellow book. That, by the way, between quotations, we have the new edition. There, the Master Samael explains how the single person put in activity the two polarities, Ida Pingala, by practicing Tong, Sa, Ham, Tong, Ra, Ham, by alternating the two nostrils, because the nostrils connect with the testicles. In other words, the breath of God is connected to the forces of the water below. And when you put in activity that energy and transmute by means of the Egyptian pranayama, or we will say in Hebrew, Mizrahim pranayama, related with your physicality, and then those two polarities put in activity the force in the middle, which is your own fire. This is how the single people enter into the initiation of minor mysteries. The monad begins with the minor mysteries. And every single person, by practicing the transmutation, the pranayama, especially, as I said, the Egyptian pranayama, start receiving initiations degrees in the internal planes. These 9 initiations are related with the dissension in the 9th sphere, or 9 spheres, plural. Because remember that underneath of Malkut, you find the other 9 layers related with Klipoth. Because you should face your own darkness. If you are afraid of showing your evil deeds to the light, then don't practice anything. But if you are not afraid of showing your deeds to the light, which is the Lord, Christ, then start with this. And then you will see how the Lord will point to you, to the different defects and vices that you have according to your own psychology. Then you have to meditate. And that's why you have to advance in the minor mysteries. Then when you go and enter the 9th sphere, then you are ready to be merry. Remember that in order to enter into the 9th sphere, you have to enter as a man, you have to enter a woman, because his womb, his uterus, is in the very center of her body, inside. It's the center of the earth. Go there inside and keep transmuting in order to enter into the major mysteries. And it's how you enter and develop. But remember this, that the har nel mias nel is related with 7 notes, as Gurdjieff explains in his book. And between every note, there is a stopping there, a process in which you activate another note in another note. But when you enter, for instance, you start with do, re, mi. Mi vibrates here in the solar plex. And fa vibrates in your heart. As you can see there in the graphic. Do, re, mi, fa is the heart, the 4th note. And we taught you in previous lectures that you have to be aware of the impressions every second that you receive at every moment. That's why you have to be attentive of your breathing. Because remember that God is Aleph. God is the breath that enters. And that's why you are alive. That breath, that oxygen purifies your blood, goes into your lungs. And your lungs, your heart pumps the blood into your lungs in order to be purified. And the blood is returned, purified, and goes all over your body. That process is what you have to be always aware. Because that's the note fa. To be here and now is the note fa that everybody has to do in order to put in activity you har nel mias nel, in order for Israel to be active in you, in order to Moses to be active in your own heaven, between the 2 waters. Remember that Moses is the one that is born from the waters, the 2 waters, above and below, mi and ma, the cerebrospinal fluid and the semen. The 2 forces where the fire is active. Because there is fire in heaven. The thunders, the lightnings show that in the earth, as well in our own head. And the fire of the Kundalini also is the outcome of the fire of the earth, the magma, whose king is Samael, king of volcanoes. That liquid fire that we have also in our sex, Scorpio. So there you have to be active. You have to be conscious that you are acting with the 2 polarities. When you activate with your pranayama the forces of your physicality, Ida, Pingala, Ma and Mi, father and mother, Then you are activating the L when you practice with your heart. Lev in Hebrew. You want to teach, you want to develop understanding of this knowledge. That's the way, the heart. But you have to be aware when you breathe in. Every second you have to be here and now, here and now. In order for God to give you, because remember that you have to remember yourself. The real self is inside, but also enters through your nostrils, because this is the breath of God that gives you life. By doing that, you are activating your consciousness here in your throat. Your word, the name Hashem, is developed here in that. Because from the heart comes to the larynx, which is that knowledge, the Sephir of mystery. And from the throat goes up to the top of the head to form the Lamed in you. But when it reaches the top of your head, is the chakra Sahasrara, which is here at the top of this graphic. The seventh is above. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. Si is the Sahasrara chakra. Keter. The pineal gland. But if you want to advance in that, another octave, when you reach C, then you have to understand what Gurdjieff states. There is another stopping there that is short, because the first one in the heart is long. You have to do a lot of efforts in order to be there, but it's long process. Here is short, which is the last stopping there, that will give access to another octave, which will be your vital body, and after the vital body, the astral body, and higher initiations. So that last octave is related with the pineal gland, the not C, the last stopping there. You discover that the pineal gland is directly related with your sexual glands. The hormones of your pineal gland activate your sexual hormones, and your sexual hormones activate the pineal gland. The more you develop the pineal gland, more you develop superlative intuition. When you act in your heart, you will develop intuition. But this intuition in the heart is like hunches. I feel something, you said. But here in the pineal gland, those hunches, those intuitions comes with images. But see the relationship. Intuition is here in the heart, and superlative intuition is here in the pineal gland. Both relate to each other. And both relate to two shocks that we have to give. The first is to remember ourselves when we are breathing, especially when we're doing pranayama, in order to activate the fires of the heart, in order to activate that knowledge in our throat, in order to activate superlative intuition that gives us comprehension, understanding of the Word of God. That's the only way. And when you remember yourself in doing that, you also activate the pineal gland. And that's the way to enter into initiation, to be here now. With the activation of the pineal gland, the chakra Sahasrara, you are developing superlative intuition, understanding, comprehension. Because in the middle of those two intuitions is the thought and your clairvoyance, the way that you see things psychologically, and the thought, the way that you understand things psychologically, Kabbalistically, alchemically. This is how you understand and develop the language of God within you. But remember that the pineal gland, in order to enter into another octave, needs a strong shock. That shock is related with the sexual energy. You have to transmute the sexual energy. Again, behold the relationship always of the sexual force. If you fornicate, if you spill the sexual energy, you lose everything. Because you cannot enter in another octave. In order to enter into another octave of the Harnel Miasnel, you have to work with the sexual energy. That's the main point of the cross, of the good thief, to activate, the sexual energy always. Because the source of the bad thief is the sexual energy. And the good is the sexual energy. With God is hidden. Within the seed is Christ hidden. And that's why many students of esotericism, for instance of Gurdjieff, or students from Krishnamurti, between two masters, because Gurdjieff is a master of the White Lodge, and Krishnamurti as well. Hey, they taught humanity good things. Like Krishnamurti, for instance, he taught how to meditate, how to comprehend the ego. You listen to his lectures, is very well explained how to comprehend things. But unfortunately, his followers don't know anything about Tantra. They do these exercises, these practices of meditation, as well as the disciples of Gurdjieff, and they fornicate. They don't enter in another octave. They always remain in Malkut, doing the work when they have to reach another octave. The last stopping there, the second shock, in order to enter, and they don't do it. They just go back to the bottom and again start doing the whole thing. And when they reach the note C, because they don't know alchemy, because they are fornicators, they go down again to the bottom. And it's like those that in mythology, those followers of this doctrine that are pushing a rock from the very bottom, and when they reach the summit, the rock goes rolling down again to the very bottom. They go down and they want to push it again. You see? That rock is a sexual force. The son of Yesod, the rock that the builders disallowed. But we have to build, but we have to know that the sexual energy is the main point here of the cross. So then, we actualize that when we transmute. When we reach certain level, and then the Gnostic, the alchemist, practice sexual magic. And then they enter into the Harnel, Miasnel in another octave. Do you realize that? First you have to begin here. When you enter in the first shock, the note Fa in your heart, to be here now, awaken. And then the note C, to be chased here in the physical way. That's the note C there, in order to enter into the vital body, into the astral body, mental body, causal body, and all the levels of heaven. Esotericists, Gnostics, are fighting in order to awake consciousness in the internal planes. But they are not awakening here. In other words, they want to put in activity their Harnel, Miasnel in the astral body, in the mental body, in the causal body. How they're going to do it if they didn't start from the bottom? They had to start here to give the 7 notes in the physical body. And for that, you have to be aware of the first shock and the second shock. But if we are wasting the sexual energy, how are we going to give those notes? Remember that the work is between heaven and earth. Remember that Israel, Jacob, is between and is the heart. What is it where you find Jacob? And Jacob is fighting there in the heart with the mighty angel of Geburah. That mighty angel of Geburah is the one that, with his might, takes the impure blood and put the blood into the lungs, and takes with his might the pure blood and distribute it to the body. And between Jacob and that angel, which is Samael, is the work that we had to do. The two sons, Tifereth and Geburah. If we succeed, we will receive the name, as is written symbolically in the Bible. I will tell you, say, who is your name? Don't ask for my name, says the angel. That is holy. But I will tell you your name. From now on, your name won't be Jacob, but Israel, because you fight against the forces of God in your body. Not outside, as people think. There was fight in the forest with certain angels. No, the fight was inside. The might of Samael is inside. You have to fight. It's the forces of the demiurgos that you have to fight with. And you do it with your heart, knowing that far, here and now, and to reject the negative thief, to reject darkness, Lilith, and then you go up. And when you reach the node C, then you keep your chastity more. You have to comprehend your lust. Otherwise, you don't advance. And now you will understand. It is true, no lie, certain, and to be dependent upon. The superior agrees with the inferior, and the inferior agrees with the superior to effect that one truly wonderful work. As all things owe their existence to the will of the only one, so all things owe their origin to the one only thing, the most hidden by the arrangements of the only God. The father of that one thing is the sun, Pingala, your head. Its mother is the moon, Ida, your sexual force. The wind carries in his belly, Aleph. You breathe it. And when you enter, you are aware there. You know that the air that you are breathing carries it in his belly. But his nurse is the spiritus earth. Your physical body has it too in the sexual force. That one thing is the father of all things in the universe. You see that so easy to understand when we follow the explanation, we understand in us. His power remains perfect after he has been united with the spiritus earth. When heaven and earth are united in the way that we explain. Separate that spiritus earth from the dance of crude by means of a gentle heat with much attention. When you reach the North Sea, you have to reach more chastity. When you penetrate the earth, when you go into the sexual act, you have to be very attentive, very gentle, to develop Moses' willpower in order to extract or separate that spiritus from the earth. In great measure ascends from the earth up to heaven. That is, if you don't reach the orgasm. And then that fire, that light ascends with a lot of strength according to your sexual power. And descends again newborn on the earth in another octave. Because the one that is doing the work is your physicality. You practice sexual magic, you enter another octave. And with the earth, you send it to another octave, another level. And the superior and the inferior are increasing power in you. You feel that physically and internally. You start having experience in the internal planes. In the physical plane, you are more aware, active, more comprehensive, and understanding, many things. By this wilt thou partake the glory of the whole world, and darkness will fly from thee. When you accumulate that force, of course, you comprehend your ego and darkness fly from you because you make light and more light and more light. This is the strength of all power. With this thou wilt be able to overcome all things and transmute all what is fine and what is coarse. In this manner the world was created. The arrangements to follow this road are hidden. Where hidden? We will say. We unveil it for you and want to see, to do that miracle. For these reasons I am called Hermes Trismegistus, one in essence and three in aspect. In this Trinity is hidden the wisdom of the whole world. We will say in the Triamatzikamno. Hermes Trismegistus is the god Mercury. The word, you know the words. It is ended now what I have said concerning the effects of the sun. Now you can ask questions. Yeah?
How do we identify when we hit a different note? Do we hear it? Is it a type of experience?
Do we hear the notes when we activate them? Well, in order to hear the notes, we have to be very awakened. But if we are very attentive, we will see how those notes are activated. Because are in relation with light, you see. The word is light. Before you see the light, first you see the light inside of you, and then you hear the thunder. Same in nature. So you are attentive, you will see the lightning in any of the chakras activated. And after that, the word, the note. But I repeat what I'm telling you. In the beginning, it's very difficult. Because we are asleep. We're in darkness. We had to put in activity a lot of willpower in order to be here now. In order to be attentive of the notes. But remember that the main note that we had to give is the note Fa. Because Fa is the solar force in nature. And whether we are in that note or not, with that energy we activate and we are aware if we are in Do, Re, Mi, or we are in that Fa really, or Sol, Fa, Mi. Or I mean the Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si. Up. Awareness is the only way. Personally, I heard and see the level in which the energy is in the spinal column when we are very attentive. You have another question?
Yes. So when we reach another note, you say that we need to be more chaste. Does this mean that if we don't gain more chastity than we had before, we will fall from a nocturnal pollution, or are you saying that we need more chastity to continue to the next octave?
Well, nocturnal pollutions precisely are the clues in order for us to give another note. Obviously, internally, we want to enter into another octave. But the one that opposes to that light is the darkness. That darkness is the ego, is lust. A proof that we are failing to give another note is a nocturnal pollution, obviously. What we had to do? We had to remember very well that experience and to meditate in that ego, in that darkness, in order to extract the light from it, in order to give the note that we want to give. Because remember that we had to give 7 notes. Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si. And every note is a kind of darkness, or stopping there, as we say, in order to give another. And the ones that oppose to that light or to that note are always inside of us. And that's why we have to be attentive. If we are attentive during the day and we remember the dreams, we have to meditate in those elements that are within in order to give access to another light, note, sound inside of us. So meditation, comprehension is the clue. Because the light shows us our evil deeds. So when we start this, we want to be chased from the beginning, not to lose the energy, but the ego inside of us, which is Lilith, which is darkness, which is Nahemad, pleasure. We said, no way, Jose. That's if your name is Jose. But it was Peter as well. So you had to comprehend it and annihilate that.
Another question.
Yeah?
Is the simple awareness of breath without a specific mantra also considered a pranayama?
Pranayama is considered pranayama when you control the energy with your breathing. Whether it's Egyptian pranayama or any type of pranayama, once you are controlling the sexual force or the energy of your emotional center, of your mental center with your breathing, that is pranayama. Especially when you control your sexual force. There are many types of pranayama. But the one that I mentioned today, it is because it's related with the two polarities. Sa and Ra, moon and sun. Yes?
I wanted to write down page number 8.
The page number 8.
Yes. So I write it down. I want to write it down.
Oh, you want to write it down? Was not a question.
I also have a question.
Yeah.
So when we fornicate, when we ejaculate, there's no other choice than to start over and try not to fornicate the next time?
Well, the thing is that we don't have to fall into that mistake of doing that for tomorrow, the sickness of tomorrow. Oh, today I couldn't, but tomorrow I will. And when tomorrow arrives, I said, oh, today I couldn't, but tomorrow I will. Weeks pass, months, years. Oh, this year I couldn't do it, but next year I will. And like that, we'll never do it. We have to fight, you know what I mean, against our own demons. And the fight is strong. That's why it is written there that the common ordinary human beings and demons have one pole upward and the other downward. But let me tell you, fornication strengthened subjective reasoning. If you observe these great intellectuals of this day and age, they are great fornicators. They enter into klipoth, and with the reasoning, they start justifying their own way of Lilith or way of Nahemad, their sexual pleasure. Or God give us this, so we have to do it. Yes, of course. This is what the animals say. And they justify their own behavior, their wrong behavior, related with the two moons, Nahemad and Lilith. Nahemad is related with adultery and fornication, prostitution. Lilith, homosexuality, lesbianism, and many other aberrations of sexuality. Yes?
Well, we're starting in our meditation class. The topic is, what's it called?
Kalkian personalities.
Yeah, that's a topic for today. It's funny how it all relates to subjective reasoning, obviously, right? And how we substituted our intuition with subjective reasoning, right? So how do we get back in terms of, generating our heart chakra again, That's what's really happening.
Yeah, the question is about the Kalkian personalities. This term, by the way, between quotations, is mentioned by Gurdjieff, Kalkian personalities, that are related with this personality that exists in this day and age, which means Kalki, of Kali Yuga, Dark Age, in which people know about esotericism or about religion. They discuss with you and they point this with their subjective reasoning. These are out of those, the more dangerous are the ones that are involved in esotericism, that they develop the 7 lower chakras that Muhammad talks about, which are the 7 doors of hell. I mean, the chakras that put you in activity or that allow you to enter easily into the infra dimensions, hell, in other words, of nature. They are really the opposite of heaven. Ordinarily, people enter into those levels when they have nightmares. But black magicians do it consciously. They develop the lower chakras of their Harnel, Miasnel through fornication in that note, Re, which is beneath the earth, taking the ray of creation backwards. Si, La, Sol, Fa, Mi, Re is hell. They are awakened in communication with other people, limbo or other levels. And because most of this humanity belong to hell, to the infradimension, because we have the ego, they can see to you and read your cards or your hand and tell you many things in relation with your ego, because they are activating their chakras and can read your ego. But they cannot see the monad, they cannot see the internal superior aspects of your being, because they are not capable of entering there, only in the lower levels of the earth. So therefore, they always are astonishing people, because they tell you many things in relation with your ego. Those are precisely Kalkian personalities. And they know about the tree of life, they know about reincarnation and many other things, subjectively, in relation with Klipath. And they appear in TV, they are applauded, but really, they don't know anything about the superior levels or their octaves of the Harnel, Miasnel. And they think sometimes that the Kundalini is a Kundavafer. Kundavafer develops with orgasm, with animal passion, easily, because we are already here in the lower level. But the Kundalini is very difficult, because for that you have to deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and to follow the light, which is a process of being here now. Because light and consciousness, awakening, is something that belongs to each other. You want to be awakened, you want to be enlightened, well, remember yourself every time, here and now. And then you will see how you will really be awakened. And be careful with those that awaken evil and for evil, with the bad thieves, because there are many, millions. We are one of them. But we have to fight against that, because we want to be good thieves.
One more right here.
Yeah?
Is a minor nocturnal pollution say that you don't even have a dream? Is this different than fornication? Do we fall just as drastically?
Is a minor pollution qualified as fornication? Fornication means ejaculation, when the semen goes out of the sexual organ. But of course, there are levels. Sometimes the individual is fighting, because suddenly discovers that he is very close to reach the orgasm and want to stop it in a dream, of course. And he ejaculates a little bit, or she ejaculates a little bit, not too much. Well, he is defeating that ego in that level too. But because if you stop it and transmit it completely, you are defeating that ego completely. But if you ejaculate it a little bit, that means that that ego is still a little bit strong. So go meditate and annihilate it. Ask for your Divine Mother. Don't be afraid of showing your evil deeds to your Lord, the Christ, to your Divine Mother. Show it. Divine Mother, I confess that I did this. Please help me. Meditate and after ask for annihilation. That's the way. Don't ever presume of being a saint, because we are not. Sanctimonious, maybe, but that's another thing. Yes?
So what you're suggesting is that we should be celibate and practice the pranayama until we reach a certain point where we're then able to work in the ninth sphere?
Well, of course, if you are single, if you are not married, if you have no wife, our advice is, of course, not celibacy, because celibacy means just to sexual abstention. It means to put in activity your sexual energy as being single, in the way that the Master teaches in the Yellow Book with pranayama. But if you already have your wife, or you have your partner, and you have a marital life, then practice sexual magic. Because the 9 initiations of minor mysteries, when you practice sexual magic, you pass that initiations, or those initiations, very fast. Because you are activating the fire. While the single people pass those initiations very slow, because they are active only with one energy. Remember that in the sexual act, the man is the heaven, and the woman is the earth, as a symbol. Because really, we see the reality, women look more than heaven, and we look like hell, right? So practice that. Practice that sexual magic if you already have your partner, your wife, your husband, in other words, for women. Otherwise, put in activity. Because don't commit the mistakes of many Gnostics that they know that the sexual energy is vital, but they don't practice anything during the day. They build energy, and during the night they have nocturnal pollutions, because the animal, physical body knows to fornicate. If you don't do it willingly, the physical body will do it instinctually. So you have to teach the physical body. In order to teach the physical body, you have to do your pranayama every day, many times. And if you are in sexual magic, well, only one time a day. 1 hour, if you can endure it. But it is up to the temperament of everyone. No more questions? Thank you very much.
The presentation of this lecture was made possible by donations from listeners like you. Help Gnostic Radio to help others. Make a donation by visiting gnosticradio.org. For questions and deeper understanding of this lecture, we invite you to explore the wide variety of resources available on our websites. Thank you for your support. May all beings be happy.